The Book of Boba Fett episode 7. Here we are, finally the finale. It's been a tense wait, it's been a curious wait. I've been apprehensive about this final episode based on, of course, the last two episodes, but Boba is in it from the offset, which is the main thing. He takes back his main role as the title character, and he was pivotal throughout, which was great to see. But of course we knew we were going to get Mando as well, and they did balance that very well. There was good balance between him and Mando, a bit more Boba than Mando, but overall the balance was great. And of course we did get a little more of this little guy, which was, it's always a pleasure to have him here. Now this is of course the final fight, the final battle between Boba and the Pikes. It's been building up, or it was building up in episodes 1 to 4, but it got put on hold in episodes 5 and 6 so that they could go on this other side storyline. But now it's finally coming to its conclusion, and we're going to see what happens. Now after some initial chit chat at the start of the episode, the chaos does begin to break out as Boba, Fennec, Mando, Kasantan, the biker gang, Gamorreans, and Freetown decide to fight back, and try and win this battle against the Pikes. And pretty much all of them do their separate battles, some fight with others, but you get Boba and Mando fighting together with each other, which was just awesome. The way they're fighting together, both using their jetpacks finally, because you always think like, come on, just get the aerial advantage, why don't they do that more often? And in here they do. They fly up, they're shooting them all from the sky. It was awesome. It really was like a sight to behold on screen. I love their fighting together moments. It's just, we didn't really get enough of it in Mandalorian, which is not a criticism. It's just, it was really cool what we did get in there, but we always wanted to see more. So the fact we got more of it here was just awesome. But the biker gang, on the other hand, I still couldn't really get behind. They just still feel out of place. Everything about them sort of feels out of place, unfortunately. And once again, I found Peli very irritating. She kind of was pushing her luck in episode 5, and here she was just unnecessary and kind of irritating. I mean, obviously she was bringing the little guy back, but it just wasn't right. It felt out of place, and the humor just wasn't landing, unfortunately. I think they definitely need to tone her down for future use if they're going to use her again in future, because she seems a little bit extra. That's how she comes across. Now whilst battle does commence, Grogu is returned by Luke. He comes back not with Luke, because Luke just sort of sends the X-Wing on autopilot with R2-D2. So, because of that, we know, okay, Grogu's picked the chainmail armor rather than, well, I say chainmail, the Beskar armor rather than the lightsaber, but it's kind of a shame we didn't get to see that scene, and, it's just sort of like, oh yeah, he's back, he made his choice. It's like, okay, because we're not seeing Luke or anything like that anymore. Okay. And, he reunites with Mando, and whilst that was a sweet moment, I felt like they could have made it more impactful if they'd saved it for a later date. Just kind of was like, oh yeah, he's back, now he's back with Mando. It's like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, my problem. The fact that I think it's all come too soon, but we'll go into that a bit more later. Now, of course, in the fight, the Pikes are using these large-scale sort of like droidekas. They're called Scorpion bots or Scorpio droids or something like that. But yeah, they're like big-ass droidekas because they've got like the shield around them and all this stuff. So, nothing's really working. The lasers aren't working. Even Mando's, Darksaber isn't working. So Boba says, I need to go and get a reinforcement real quick. And you're thinking, what could this be? And then I remember, of course, the Rancor. The Rancor is back on the scene. Yeah, he fucks him up, and it was so cool to see him riding a Rancor. He's got the chains around it. He's just messing him up. But ultimately, he does kind of get thrown off the Rancor when Cad Bane shows up and starts to cause a bit of trouble. Now, Cad Bane, of course, really cool to finally see him, live action like we did last week. And it was a cool little fight between him and Boba and stuff. But, it was short, of course, because it's just a gunfight, and Cad Bane wins that. But, he underestimates the fact that Boba is actually not all about the guns these days. He's very good with his staff that he crafted from the Tuskens, and it's cool that it kind of came full circle there as he uses his, what he learned from the Tuskens, and you sort of use their memory to inspire him there, because it was actually the Pikes that had killed the Tuskens. So it's cool that he kind of came back and used what he'd learned to defeat Cad Bane and kill him. Stabs him in the stomach, so he's probably going to live. I doubt they've killed him off there. I'm sure he will be back. I mean, that's pretty much an end to it. Like, the Pikes are pretty much dealt with like the foot soldiers are, and Cad Bane's been dealt with, but the Rancor is now on the loose. It's kind of going a bit crazy. It's like, just attacking anyone and everyone. So Grogu comes to the rescue and does his little hand thing, puts it to sleep. Absolutely adorable. And then he sort of like, strokes it whilst it's like, it's just so cute, so damn cute. You can't help but smile in a scene like that. It was adorable. And then he just cuddles up and sleeps next to him, and you're just like, dude, can you get any cuter? And whilst Grogu's doing this, Fennec finishes off, You know, the rest of the Pike Syndicate, she kills all the heads of the family, she kills the mayor, and then she kills the head Pike Syndicate leader. Of course, you wonder if that's the end of the Pike Syndicate, or is there actually someone else orchestrating all of this in the shadows? You know, that is the question. Part of me thinks that, but, you know, either way, it seems to be dealt with, at least for the time being. You know, their business on Mos Espa and on Tatooine in general is certainly done. Boba and Fennec now have peace, but of course, they kind of have this doubt about whether they should be running Mos Espa, because, you know, is it really what they're cut out for? You know, they're the best killers in the galaxy, or at least some of the best killers in the galaxy, and they're just going to live peacefully in silence forever. You know, they'd go insane, I feel like. So, you know, there's always this sort of left open a bit about what will they do. Will they really run it, or will they go on some more adventures in the future, which I think they should, because then we can see more of them. Mando and Grogu, they ride out into the stars, you know, off to do whatever they're going to do next. I guess it could be go to Mandalore or something. We'll see. I mean, it's cool. It's open to anything. Now they can really do whatever they want with these two characters. Maybe that is why they brought them back so soon, because they didn't want to spend a season of the show, you know, tackling the whole thing of Mando trying to get Grogu back. Maybe they just wanted to get that done now so they can, you know, build a new story. Either way, but that was that for those two, and then you get a little post-credit sequence as well that shows Cobb Vanth is still alive, which is hardly a surprise because we didn't think they'd really killed him off. And yeah, and that's it. That's the end of the show. But I do need to mention one great thing about this show is the soundtrack. Got the music they play in every outro. You know, when they're showing all the concept art is phenomenal. Great soundtrack. I never skip the credits because, you know, I mean, the concept art is worth watching alone, but the music is badass, just like the Mandalorian's theme was. To review this episode, just this episode alone, I think they left a lot to do in the final episode, so it was a good thing it was an hour long, you know, the longest episode of the series. I think the humor was off at times, and some of the writing did feel a bit off. It didn't feel like it was really suitable for the characters, and, you know, it just felt off, and sometimes the direction felt a bit off, and I think they gave too much screen time to characters that just aren't that interesting when they've got all these other characters in the show that should be getting all the screen time. But apart from that, this was quite a well balanced episode, and, you know, it was nice that actually the title character was taking the reins again, as he should be in his own show. I think they did leave themselves too much to do here, and that's down to the fact that the writers decided to take a detour for 2 episodes and tell another story, rather than continue the story that they had been telling for the first 4 episodes. But really, this is still a satisfying conclusion. It hasn't left me feeling bitter or disappointed. It's just kind of left me with the feeling of it could have been better overall. You know, it's nothing exceptional like the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, but this is still pretty good, and, you know, it's worth watching the show, and this was, like I said, a satisfying finale, and I would give it an 8 out of 10. Now, let's talk about the show in general. This strange show, spin-off show, whatever show, The Book of Boba Fett. Let's talk about it. So this was a show that didn't completely wow me for the first 3 episodes, but I did definitely feel like it was getting better, and it had my interest, and, you know, had my curiosity. And then when episode 4 aired, I was like, whoa, this is actually pretty good. It's building up to something cool here. I can't wait to see where this goes. At that point, I'm very invested, I'm very excited, and whilst I loved episode 5, that was where the bit of doubt first started creeping into my mind, where I start to think, why have they done that? Should they have given him a whole episode? You know, a bit of doubt, but I thought, okay, it's fine. That was a really cool episode. Let's see what happens next. Now, episode 6, of course, was great for fan service, but like 5, in regards to consistency in developing the show and the series, it wasn't great. It had problems. But for Star Wars content, it doesn't get much better than what we got in 5 and 6. We got some crazy stuff, you know, ever since, you know, the original trilogy finished. Fans have always wanted to see Luke after episode 6, what he was doing, you know, the training and, you know, setting up his own Jedi Academy and stuff, and we actually got glimpses of that for once, which was awesome. And yeah, this last episode, it brought everything to a conclusion, but it felt like they had so much to squeeze in and wrap up in this last episode, because they didn't pace themselves very well, because they dedicated 2 episodes to the main character of another show, rather than dedicating all the episodes to the main character of this show. Honestly, it just feels like this wasn't the plan. It feels like this show was actually just meant to be all about Boba, with Fennec alongside him, but then it seems like halfway through writing, the writers were like, you know what, no, should we bring in Mando? Should we bring in Mando? I think we should bring in Mando. It's like they cracked under the pressure and said, fuck it, like, let's just bring him back now. Like, it seems like they're they were so focused on thinking about maybe like Mandalorian season 3 that whilst they were making this spin-off show, they were like, let's just bring him back now. Let's bring him back now. Should we bring it now? Let's bring him back now. And rather than just bringing him back for a bit, they actually got so carried away, it seems, in their writing that they were like, they started writing season 3 in this show. And they were like, okay, let's see if we can, balance it somehow where, the whole show isn't actually about Boba and we make it up, it's like a two-sided thing. But because they've done that, they've had to rush it all because they're trying to fit 2 character storylines in one show. And, they're just, they're slapping The Mandalorian in the middle of someone else's show. And like I've said before, whilst it's great content, it did feel out of place. It's like they didn't think Boba's story was interesting enough, and whilst it wasn't as interesting as like the Mandalorian Season 1 and Season 2 storyline, of course, it was still telling a consistent story that was building up to something more interesting, and it certainly had potential to, end a certain way that made it really interesting. I would have rather they'd rolled with Boba and just carried on telling his story and made it like a nice consistent thing, even if it had been like, oh yeah, it was decent, but not as good as Mandalorian, because despite the great stuff we've seen, I think it would have been better if they just saved it for The Mandalorian Season 3. And it does feel like we got this stuff too soon, almost lessening the impact of The Mandalorian Season 2 finale, where it felt very like that was it, like this was actually the end, and that Mando and Grogu weren't going to see each other for ages. Like, I actually had this idea in my head that Mando might not see Grogu again until Mando's like very old, and Grogu's still kind of like this, still young, and maybe Mando's like fucking 78 years old, he's dying or something, Whilst that's sad, imagine how emotional and impactful that would have been if it's like, it's been all that time for both of them, they finally reunite. How crazy would that be? It's like they've redeemed that quite quickly. They haven't kept us waiting, they haven't kept us itching for more, and it's a little bit underwhelming in a sense, because that was something I was really looking forward to, and I wanted to see them reunite again, of course, but the fact that they've done it in the middle of someone else's TV show, and then just, made it happen very suddenly and very quickly, I felt like they really could have, like, made it a bit more painful for the viewer, and like made us want it more, and really, when it came to it, delivered it and make it way more impactful. Obviously, I said before that it's like, oh yeah, you can't watch Mandalorian Season 3 without watching the Book of Boba Fett, you can't watch Book of Boba Fett without watching Mandalorian and stuff, and it's weird now that you could watch Mandalorian Season 2, you might skip this show because you think you don't need to see it, and then you go and watch Mandalorian Season 3 and you're like, why the fuck are they back together? What is going on? Have I missed something? And it's because they put his introduction of Season 3 into this show. And the thing is, now we're sitting all comfy like, oh yeah, Mando and Grogu are back together, that's nice, okay. But it's also like, I kind of enjoy the intrigue, I enjoy the not knowing, I enjoy the fact that, oh my god, are they ever going to see each other again? Like, there's no tension anymore for a Season 3, it feels like. It just feels like, okay, we know they're back together, they're going to go on adventures, which is cool, but where's the tension? Where's the drama? Where's the excitement? There's not really any anymore. Now, of course, in regards to Boba himself in this show, I guess he doesn't really feel like the Boba we all knew. I think a lot of people say that. It's almost like Mandalorian has become what Boba was, like a guy whose face you never see, and if you do, it's very rarely, and he's someone that's, doesn't say a lot, speaks shortly, gives long stares, and that's kind of what makes him so intriguing. But they've switched Boba into this person that's like, got his helmet off quite a lot and doesn't seem to be in control as much as he used to be. It's almost like Fennec is the one advising him a lot of the time, and he's listening to Fennec's orders in a sense. It's like he's not actually in charge, and I don't mind the fact that he is a different character, because obviously he went through that experience in Sarlacc pit, near-death experience, and then all that stuff with the Tuscans, so that can explain why he has changed the way he has. But saying that, it did feel like he lacked authority at times. It felt like he was also always a authoritative figure, and it seemed like he was lacking that a slight bit in here. He didn't feel as badass as he once did. But saying that, Morrison still did a fantastic job with his character, and even if it's not perfect, and it's not what we were expecting, I still love the portrayal. And Fennec was also great in this show. She's really good, and they introduced also a lot of other great characters like Kasantan and Cad Bane live action and all this, so that was really cool as well. Overall, this show is a weird one. It actually cocked up by giving us great Star Wars content, some of the best Star Wars content, but at the wrong time. It's a bit like getting a really great buffet of food, like a load of fried chicken and pizza and all this really great food, but then it arrives at your house at 9 a.m. And it's like, yeah, that does look good and I want it, but not quite yet. You know, it's kind of come at the wrong time and I'm in the middle of breakfast, you know? This is what it feels like. You did want it, but not yet. You know, it feels like it lessens the impact when you've been kept waiting a while. You want it more, so when it finally comes, it tastes even better, you know? And that's what it's like with this. We should have been waiting longer for Mando and Grogu to come back on screen. And then when we did eventually get it, whether that would have been later this year or next year, we would have been like, oh, so good to have him back. I really was loving the first 4 episodes, as it was actually surprising me the quality of the show, because I wasn't like overly hyped or excited initially for this show. I was like, oh yeah, it's cool, Star Wars content. I'm intrigued by it for sure, but I didn't expect much. But it was actually pleasantly surprising me as each episode got better and it's telling quite an interesting storyline. But of course, the last 3 have me conflicted, as you know, mainly 5 and 6, where they switched the storyline and it kind of got everyone thinking and talking, and everyone loved it, but everyone was also a bit wary of why they've done this and how it is actually affecting the show as a whole. A strange show, but a good one nonetheless, and it really is a tale of 2 halves, you know, or a tale of 2 Mandalorians, and it is a strange one, but it is worth watching. And of course, if you are interested in The Mandalorian, you do have to watch this as well now, because it is very important that you see all 3 of these shows in an ongoing story. Overall, I would give The Book of Boba Fett a 7.5 out of 10. A lot to talk about there, a lot of thoughts to get out in the air. Let me know what you guys thought about the show. Did you think it was the right decision to bring Mando back? Did you think they should have stuck with Boba? Do you think, you know, the Mando stuff was the best parts? Because I know a lot of people did, and they maybe wouldn't have enjoyed the show so much. But whilst I like fan service, I think there's a time and a place for it, and I think it was a bit forced here and a bit soon as well. But either way, I've been Joe Squared. Thank you very much for watching, and until our next Star Wars show, which I believe is Obi-Wan, that'll be it for Star Wars content for the time being. Goodbye from me, bye from Grogu. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.